I was determined to get here to introduce Beth because we are colleagues. I have the privilege of serving on the board of Constellation, and we sometimes even sit next to each other at meetings. Let me start by saying that this is another one of our talks in our 2007-2008 Visionaries series. We enjoy bringing colleagues from around the industry in the area, having our students here, some faculty. Students are looking for jobs. Let me just say that to you right now. So if they come up to you looking for a card, give them a card, Bob Deutsch. Give them a card. They hire a lot of our students, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We want to give special thanks to our sponsors, AT&T, BD Metrics, Baltimore Business Journal, City Financial, Constellation, GBTC, IBM, Lockheed Martin, Morgan Stanley, Northrop Grumman, Tech Council of Maryland, T. Rowe Price, and Xerox. You may not know it, but UMBC now has about 12,000 students, of whom 60% are in science and tech areas. So over 7,000 of those students are in those areas, with students from over 130 countries. So it's a very international place. What I like saying, though, is that more and more we're getting people, young Americans and others, into these disciplines, into technology. I was looking at the Constellation table, and it's not the Constellation I see every day when I'm at a board meeting. This is a 30-something group for the most part, I would say, maybe even 20-something. And that's the exciting news about what Beth can say to us. As a member of the board of the American Technion Society, as a member of the board of the Maryland Israel Development Center, and also on our CWIT board, the Center for Women in Information Technology, the fact is that Beth Perlman is a leader in technology, not only in our country, but internationally. You've got material that talks about her background. There's several things I want to say. She's been Chief Information Officer since 2002 and Senior Vice President. She was named Chief Administrative Officer just recently, back in June, and in that role is now responsible for not only the IT areas and for standardization of systems and architecture, but also for human resources, operations services, and business performance improvement. The most important thing I can tell you is that the board clearly sees Beth Perlman as one of the best thinkers we've ever seen at Constellation. I would say, as president of UMBC, I've never seen someone so able to go across sectors of our society in looking at issues involving students and looking at international issues, and really caring deeply about connecting people to technology and building the technology infrastructure, not only of this country, but beyond. And so it's my privilege to introduce one of America's great leaders already, Beth Perlman.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, because I can tap dance if things get boring here, and I can. I have tap danced in front of the board of directors. It's one of my talents. And you know, there's a lot of people I know here, so I just hope you find this exciting because, and there's Claudia, yay. Okay, anyway, so I hope that you guys learn something new or hear something new and exciting because, you know, I like to talk a lot, so you guys always hear me all the time anyway, so maybe there's some good nuggets here, but let me give you a little bio about myself. First of all, how many of you in here are students? Great. Well, I was a student. That's fantastic. I was a student once too. I went to Syracuse University. I did not grow up here, so I didn't really know from the University of Maryland, but it's a great university, and my love for UMBC, being in our backyard and doing a lot of work with this group. When I was in college, this is a story for the students. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I majored in finance and something called management information systems, but when you graduated in 1982 with a degree in management information systems, what did that mean? Technology was so young, we had hierarchical databases. That was the big new thing. So when I got out of school, I was offered jobs to be a computer programmer, to be an actuary. Now that, I'm so glad I didn't do. I was off, and I went into banking operations. So I started my career at JP Morgan. And I refused all these jobs being a computer programmer, and they paid well in 1982. They were paying $18,000. That was good money. So I went through banking operations, and I realized this was the time when technology was starting, and I started working on technology projects. And I said, I really have a knack for this, and I happen to have had some guys, and this is, It's very interesting because a lot of the role models growing up, there weren't a lot of women in technology, it were guys. And they would say to me, Beth, you have a knack for this. You really should go into the systems training program. And at JP Morgan, 3 years after I started, I went into the systems training program. Became a mainframe programmer, hated every minute of it. But as a result, understood how the machines worked, and I really pursued the business side of technology, which was I was working with users, understanding how to meet their needs using technology as a tool. So that's the way my career progressed. So there's a few morals in this story. One is that students is don't be afraid to try things. Nothing is permanent. You will figure out what you want to do by doing things you don't want to do, and you'll cross those off your list, and you'll keep evolving. Because to this day, I'll tell you, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. All right? So my career started on Wall Street. That was a tough place. 13 years. Again, starting at JP Morgan, then I went to a company. Now you're going to see my resume. Every other company is gone on this resume. So the next company was Kidder Peabody. Anybody ever heard of that company? Okay, busto, but my timing was good. I left a year before the place imploded. That was a problem with a trader. It was owned by GE Financial, as a matter of fact, and they were doing some very funky things with trading. The company didn't go bankrupt, but they decided for ethical reasons and all and costs just to close the company and sell off retail pieces. So I started working, though, in trading technology, and I started getting a knack for mortgage-backed derivatives. And so, again, I said, trading, something I never really expected to be in, but okay, I understand these accounting systems. I learned more about trading. And then my next job was at a company called Lehman Brothers. They're still here safely today, where I started working in equity derivatives technology. Now, that was interesting because derivatives were sort of new and funky at the time, and I was learning on the job all about these very crazy financial instruments and working on automation. And then, in 1995, my boss left the company, and he went to this company I never heard of in Houston, Texas called Enron. Now, who has heard of Enron here? Timing was not so good this time. I stayed through bankruptcy. You know, they always like to say, you know, working through bankruptcy, it's a very good learning experience. Who said that? It is not. And I always my big joke was I was responsible for the estate, so I was responsible for protecting the creditors. And the estate, I said, this is the only estate that has no jewelry. I have never seen a jewelryless estate. And so I was trying to protect, you know, assets. But unbelievably so, as luck would have it. And I have to say, luck enters into it sometimes. I was able to get this job at Constellation Energy, and I thought, oh, I'd had it with this energy industry. This was an industry I did not want anything to do with anymore. But I accepted the job, and it's been a great career. And I've been able to learn, further myself, grow and develop, and in this community, because this is a great, not being from Baltimore, anybody here not from Baltimore? Okay, so you know it's a little hard. It's a nice community, it's a very tight community, but getting in and fitting in is very hard. So that's what I've really been focusing on is my own personal development as well, is how can I give back to the community? And that's why I do a lot of things in the technology area with the Center for Women. I believe in education. I believe in getting girls into technology. And a lot of the things I do with Israel are related around technology as well. So enough about me. Let me talk a little bit about Constellation Energy. Now, this is a complex organization, so when you talk about managing technology for a complex organization, I'm not sure they get much more complex than Constellation. So, if you look, we now have 3 major business units. Has everybody heard of Baltimore Gas and Electric? Okay. I'm going to try when I cough not to cough into the microphone. Okay, so we have the local utility, serving 1.2 million electric customers and 600,000 gas customers. Now, technology in Baltimore Gas and Electric, what does that look like? Well, they're more focused on reliability to the customer. So when you touch their technology, it has to be doing something to improve the customer service so you don't get complaints from the Public Service Commission, has to do something about delivering electricity and gas to your doorstep, keeping it safe, right? So that's one culture. Then I have another culture, which is nuclear generation. We own 3 nuclear generation plants, 1 in Maryland, and that has 2 units, 2 in New York, okay, for a total of 3 units. So what's the focus on nuclear? Well, they're very procedural. very safety-oriented. And so they don't quite move very fast because everything has to be the I's dotted, the T's crossed. You have to go through regulatory agencies to make sure that your procedures are safe and sound. So again, that's even a very different culture from even the utility. And then you have this thing called Constellation Energy Resources, which is our traders and people selling gas, coal, electricity, crude oil to everything from other utilities, local distribution companies, businesses in the commercial and industrial area. This is the cowboys. This is where speed is important. Okay, so speed to market is a differentiator. So you have these other cultures which are safety, reliability, procedural, and then you have speed. So you can understand now what makes the organization complex. So how do we balance this? Well, first I really should give you a look at what this place looked like 5 years ago when I started. We had 15 data centers. We're only 10,000 employees across the country. Now we're internationally as well in London and in Australia. But we had, everybody had their own image of a desktop. Anybody could load software. We had 13 financial systems. And so it was really hard to do anything as a company. But everybody sort of liked their independence. So this was really hard when I came in and I said, we got to put some governance in place. And we did so by doing project after project. And I'm talking big investments. My IT budget between capital and my ongoing O&M is $270 million a year. That's pretty big. So we did things like spent $20 million putting in a standard computing infrastructure. Now we have two major data centers. We have a standard desktop. You can't load your own software. Sorry, that's just how we govern. There was a lot of whining. There was a lot of moaning. There was a lot of belly aching. You name it, I heard it. We persevered. And you just have to address people's concerns. You know, you have to hear people out. You have to say, I hear you, but these are the benefits you're going to get. And I will tell you that now that I always reflect. The most important thing I do is say, let me look back at what I did, and was it the right thing to do? Because I spent a lot of money, and if I made a mistake, I want to know. And we don't understand how we would have operated in today's world if we hadn't done the things that we did. Spending $36 million on putting on a new financial platform, $16 million on putting in a human resources platform. So we're talking big money. And the funny thing is nobody can say, wow, this really did a lot for my productivity, or this changed the way I worked. It was these necessary evils that were the foundation for our organization. But had we not done this, we could not grow at the rate we're growing. You have to remember, 5 years ago, we were a $2.7 billion in revenue company, and last year we were a $19.2 billion revenue company. So you can see the amount of growth that we've had in the last 5 years. So how do we manage technology in a complex organization? I wish I could tell you it was easy, but it's not. We also like to say we're like the BASF. We don't make the product, we make the product better. So I don't have an R&D budget. We don't just have, you know, in a 700-person IT organization, it's not like you have a group of 20 people exploring new technologies and just trying to figure out what's the newest, latest, and greatest gizmo and how do we apply it to our organization. That's not how we work. We always say that if we're going to use new technology, it has to add business value. Remember, my objective is to put out business applications that make that business better, make them either more productive, so hopefully they cut down on costs, or earn more revenue. Those are the objectives. So how do we do that? Well, we look at business cases all the time. So what we do is, you have to realize 5 years ago, nothing standard. We had nothing for, you know, it was sort of like databases. You name it, we had it. Now we're very standardized. You know we use Oracle, we use SQL Server. We don't introduce any new funky ones. This is our platform. We have middleware. So I don't know if you guys all know how middleware works, but it's a messaging bus to get information from a system to another system without doing point-to-point interfaces. We have a standard middleware platform. We have standard web services. We have a standard portal. We have standard document management systems. It did not start out that way. In the beginning, the users would say, well, we're doing a project. Oh, we need a document management system. Let's go look. Well, what did that do? Elongated a project lifecycle because now you had to implement other pieces, parts. Hurt your support model because now you have onesie twosies of people that can support each piece of technology. So we like to say we had about 5 document management systems, and we rationalized that. And we said now we have a standard. So we take the guesswork out of how to move your applications. So we also do business cases when we look at new technology. And when a new technology can be implemented, in other words, let's say I'm doing a new system and I have a real need for a technology. I can build a business case and I look then on how can I adopt this technology across the broad spectrum of my businesses. And in putting out further applications and systems, will this reduce my time? Remember, speed's important. Reduce my time to delivery and cut down on my future project costs as well. So that's really important. So let me talk about some of the things we're even talking about. And you have to realize technology is not just a shiny object. There's a whole mental thing that has to take place on the user side as well. How much new technology can your user community absorb? Is this change that they can adopt to? Will they change their way of working? Because a lot of times things don't fail because of technology. Things fail because people cannot adopt new technology. So let's just talk about something that we're pursuing right now. Anybody ever heard of Web 2.0? These 2 tables better have answered that. Okay, so the new buzzword is Web 2.0. What does Web 2.0 really mean? It's more about social computing. Maybe I should ask some of the students about how do you work. Do you pick up the phone to call your friends? Do you have, okay, MySpace or Facebook pages? Okay, how many students have Facebook or MySpace pages? How many non-students have Facebook? Oh, I'm even more impressed. Okay. Okay, social computing. How do you reach out to the community? How do you be transparent? How can you better interact? Because you know what? In 10 years, when kids come out of school and are starting to work in your environment, they're going to work differently than we do today. Okay, so how do we take some of these social computing skills and say, are we ready to adopt it? Well, who heard in the last year that we had some problems with BGE with our rates going up? Okay, if we use social computing, would it have been a good idea to be very forward on our website, talking to you, whether it's in some sort of blog, some sort of way of reaching out to the community? What was the rationale and why are we doing this? And it's not just because we want to make more money. Would that have helped? We talk about these things. How do we, going forward with our energy saver programs, how do we use things like social computing tools on the bge.com website? So here's a new concept, and we're saying, okay, how transparent as a company do we want to be? And is this something we can adopt? And we're actually engaging in dialogue now about how to do this. Now, the IT group was the one saying, we probably should start embracing some of these things, because if we don't, they're going to pop up anyway. And people are talking about us anyway, so why not just be upfront about the whole thing? So, but you can see by my talk is the technology people have to really understand the business. Because they're not saying, oh, I want to use Web 2.0 technologies. They're saying, I see a need to embrace some new technology that is going to help the business be better at what they do. And I will tell you that the world's changing in delivering applications. We use a lot of packages. We do a lot of integration work. We don't sling a lot of our own code anymore. And so because of that, you want to implement software that's very vanilla. You don't want to customize. And one of the challenges I always have in my own organization is, but we're different. Okay, again, this is where the IT people have to be very business oriented and say, why do you think you're different? If 100,000 users use Oracle Financials, why do you have to do your accounting different than how Oracle puts out this package? And why is your HR department's processes so different that if you're using something like PeopleSoft, again, with a large user community, you feel you have to be different, right? So we have now taken a new approach because customization costs money. So we're trying to, I have this phrase that says, make the simple things simple. Over years, organizations have complicated their business processes and technology so much that we've gotten to the point where we make the simple things so hard that we're going back to basics, grassroots level. You have to always remember one thing, though. Security, security, security is of utmost importance. It's a different world today, right? Keeping information secure, making sure that your employees' information is secure, even though there's a world of transparency, this is really important. So every time we look at technologies, security is one of those key things that we look at as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when we look at technology, we're not a hammer looking for a nail, right? We don't go off and just look at new solutions. We actually have more just-in-time delivery. We're trying to seek new technologies to solve a business problem. I'll give you another example. Anybody heard of SOA, service-oriented architecture? Okay. So big buzzword, big buzzword. Well, is everybody running to adopt it? Well, the thing is if it's done right, it has a lot of benefit in your organization. So again, here we are as a group analyzing how we can use service-oriented architecture. So things that we've done, just to give you examples, and I'll try to give you examples that are very applicable to everybody, is we have an HR system, yet we have human resources data all over the place for all of our systems. So we said, this is ridiculous. Keeping all this information synced up is very difficult. We're going to develop a service that's called a people service. And you can go to one place to get all your information on an employee or a contractor. Sounds simple, right? So this is how we start. We don't go and build out 8 zillion services. We go and build out ones that are important to us. You know, another buzzword. Anybody heard of software as a service? It's another big buzzword. What does that mean? I don't think anybody can define it. We talk about these things and we say, this one, not applicable to us. Because we're so big and have so much scale, I don't see any reason why, number one, I have to offer services to other companies for profit. That takes me away from my core competency. And there's no reason, because I'm a big company, I don't have to buy services from others as well, like financial services or human resource services. So we evaluate all these things, and how do you get this information? That's the hard thing, you know, between conferences, between talking, you know, networks are really important, so you have to speak to other people in the industry. I'll talk a little more about this, but strategic vendor relationships, I have some of my vendors in here as well. Those are important to stay on top of strategic things that are happening in technology. So let's go back to the strategy, because I started mentioning things about strategy. Number one, we do a 5-year roadmap. So we're in that process right now. Some of these guys were here very late last night trying to figure it all out. And you really have to know where you want your business to go. Because again, it's not about the technology. The technology needs to support the business in this complex organization. So we're working with the business side by side to say, what do you think you're going to need? Now, let's go back to that analogy of all my companies. So in nuclear, I know exactly what my 5 years looks like, because I know they need new systems to operate the plants. I also know that we're in a new business called Unistar, which is building new nuclear plants, and that they're going to need technology over the next 10 years to support the building of those plants and the operating of those plants. In the utility, I have something that we call Vision 2020. So looking out into the future, in the utility, we're trying to revolutionize how we do work. One of the big drivers is we have an aging workforce. I think everybody has an aging workforce issue. So we can't just keep hiring new people to replace it. We really have to change how we work. So we have a roadmap for how we're going to do all of our future work in BGE. Now you have this group that does the trading and the marketing. They don't know what they're doing tomorrow, let alone 5 years from now. This is the group that presents the biggest problem to me when trying to plan and organize. And they also spend the most money in technology, because if you want to be cost effective, you have to plan. If you want to react and get things done on a speed to market basis, you spend more money. So we're in the process of doing that 5-year plan, but there are certain areas that iterate and certain areas that plan. And anytime we take on new technology especially, we iterate. We don't go big. So I'll talk about our environments a little. So I told you we implement things more just in time, and we start small. So when we started with, I'll just give you an example. We hadn't had a web portal. We actually started very late in the portal technology. So we chose a vendor, excuse me, and we decided that there is workflow all over this company. And we decided email wasn't a very good way to manage your workflow. As a matter of fact, I hate it. I'm an anti-email person in a way, because everything goes through email, and it's gotten to the point where email's so junked up you can't recognize what's good email from junk email. So email wasn't a good way to manage your work on a day-to-day basis. So if I have requests coming in for approval to approve invoices, approve security requests, approve new purchase orders, I had to go all over the map to do that. So we created something called a work queue. And all it does is it uses our middleware technology, uses our portal technology, and notifies me of all the things that need my attention. So what do? We tested this out just on the IT group. We make ourselves eat our own dog food. So we experiment a lot. We find out what the problem is. It's not open kimono to the users. And we test out everything. And so we put ourselves through the paces, and we're our own critics. And that's how we test out new technology. Because we have made mistakes where we implement new technologies before they're really ready for prime time. So something that was supposed to be small all of a sudden snowballed, and it's big technology, and everybody adopted it. Anybody heard of Microsoft SharePoint services? Okay, so it's a little bit portal-like. You can collaborate on putting your documents together. And so all we did was move from having shared directories to now using this new tool. And I have an explosion of information. It's supposed to be used for collaboration. Now it's becoming permanent storage, when I really have another place I should use for permanent storage. So we have to be really careful about how we roll out new technologies, how they're adopted, because if we're not ready, I just move the problem from one place to another place. That better not be my phone, because that was my ring, but I thought I turned it off. I think also what's really hard is keeping up with the rate of innovation. Now, there's been no big whiz-bang thing out lately, but it's further refinement of all the technologies that are out there. So again, I told you that we rely on our vendors. I have my Cisco rep here, my Sun rep here. We make vendor visits once a year out to California. Unfortunately, they're all in California, which is a long hike for us. And we say, what does your product roadmap look like? So we do that with Sun, with Cisco, with Microsoft, with Hewlett-Packard, with Oracle. And then we sit down together, and then we take all this information, and we try to assimilate it and say, okay, what does this mean for us? And how are we going to put this in our roadmap? So some of the technologies that we've adopted as of late are things like voice over internet protocol. Anybody have VoIP phones? Okay. Where your phone almost becomes like a computer, right? Very portable. So for business continuity purposes, it's very easy. If I had a desk downtown and I have a desk now for business continuity in Texas, guess what? My same phone number can ring in Texas, even though the area codes are different if you're in Texas. Voice over IP doesn't care about that. My local phone number can work anywhere. All right? The big thing, some of the new technologies that we're working on, let's say with Sun, is more energy efficiency in the data center. So this is something a user wouldn't even see, right? But my bills, I pay about $180,000 a month between my 2 data centers in electricity. And I heard yesterday that data centers are 2% of the electricity consumption in this country. Okay, so if we're all talking about a carbon neutral footprint, I don't know how we're gonna get there, but everybody's at least talking about it. Thank you, Al Gore, he did something. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have made a political commentary down there. I'm a Republican. Anyway, we have to start getting more energy efficient in our data centers. So we have just swapped out our old equipment. Now the problem is you make such a big capital investment in equipment, but over time, we're getting better and better equipment that's much more energy efficient, and so we have to make that investment and get off of the old equipment. Now again, this doesn't, the users don't see business value really, but when it comes to operating your data center more efficiently, getting down on power consumption, this is an important concept. The other thing is to make sure that your vendor is viewed as your strategic partner, not as your salesperson. Because salespeople we don't think we have. We have people that partner with us, understand our business, and are going to help us with solutions. And don't just come and sell me anything. Come and talk to me about what you can do for my company. And the other thing is to make sure that we're out talking about to our employees. So we just had a meeting with the leadership of IT, which at a 700-person organization, the top leaders are about 60. And we just had an offsite where we talked about innovation, and we talked about this social computing and adoption, and let people come up with ideas, because it's not about me mandating ideas. It's about me giving people the information they need to create the ideas. It's not the Beth show, okay? This is all about a team and people that are a lot smarter than me about understanding the technologies and how we can apply them in our organization. So, things to consider when you're looking at new technologies. Is this really going to add value to my company? What does this do for us? Are my users really going to adopt this new technology? Like, new technologies we're looking at is, in all of our BGE trucks, we have PCs and wireless devices. And so when they're out in the field, they can actually pull up a map of what the equipment looks like in that area, help diagnose the problem, get work dispatched. Now, do you think that this was easy to adopt? You're talking about a person whose focus is a lineman, who climbs poles, pulls wires. I am asking him now to be technology proficient. And what does that workforce look like in the future? English could be a problem, let alone having somebody, we call them a big hands guys, it's very politically non-correct, but these are guys that wear gloves and use wrenches, and I'm asking them to press on a little key on a keyboard to put in information about the service work that they just did. So you have to say, are they really ready to adopt this new technology? And we're actually refining all this mobile technology because the public carriers are getting better, and you're going to see a lot more in BGE about innovation with meters out in your home that are smart enough to send information back to BGE. Then we can ask you questions on how you would rather better manage your energy consumption. I mean, with the public carriers that we have now, with the wireless networks, we're in a position to do this. We weren't years ago, so what you have is old meters that are radio frequency, that somebody has to ride around in a truck, pick up the radio frequency to read your meter, let alone doing any energy management. So you're going to see these new technologies, but it's going to change how people work. The other question is do I have the right expertise in my group to really manage this technology? Now, this is where I need to put a plug in for, it is hard to find resources in Baltimore that are proficient. So we're really starting to go to the college programs and say, I need your college grads. But being a woman in technology, I will tell you that women are, 52% of the college population, and they are a little blip on a map as far as being in technology fields. So we have to encourage children to pursue the maths and sciences so that we have the resources in our local community to be able to help us with these technologies. And I'm just one company. There's T. Rowe Price and Legg Mason and a lot of other companies. We're all fighting over the same resources. It's a small community. And so if you can take anything away from this, is go speak to your children and encourage them to go into technology fields, because there's a lot of work in this town for them. So as far as Constellation's concerned, is we're not trying to be the most innovative company. We're trying to be innovative enough to help our organization either, remember the two themes, increase their earnings or cut down on costs in our operations. We look at the industry, we look at best practices, we see how we can adopt them. We are constantly trying to raise the bar. We don't sit on our laurels and say, oh, everything's working here. Because I'll tell you, every year when we think we've hit our targets and what we wanted to do, the bar just got raised and we're playing a new game. And again, going back to my concept of making the simple things simple, that's really important. So there's no magic wand to wave. There's no easy way to do it. You have to get out and talk to your user community, talk to your vendors. You have to assimilate a lot of information and really come up with a game plan. So that's how we've done it at Constellation Energy. We're just trying to get better and better at what we do. So I'd like to thank you all for having me, and I'd love to open it up to the floor for any questions that you might have. And if you're too shy to ask them, I'll stay around. And there's two tables of people that probably have heard this. Did you hear anything new? I'm consistent, right? Okay, good. Nothing? Okay. I think people are seeing it already. So if you look at other companies that have adopted this, look, I always said people are talking about you regardless. So it's helped in product creation. So if you look at Lego, they have actually let people design their own Lego models, and then they assemble them and ship them out. So it's actually helped them increase their sales by allowing people to be creative. If you look at Johnson & Johnson, they're allowing people to help them innovate new products. So and I'll give you another example of what we're doing at Constellation. What you have to realize is it opens the whole world to you, right? As opposed to saying, oh, I have a marketing department, let me focus on these 5 people. So at Constellation Energy, there's one area where we do write a lot of code. And you know, it's very traditional to either write it yourself or outsource it offshore. We took a very different approach. We're using a concept called crowdsourcing. So if you ever think of open source, you know, open source is basically anybody can contribute and the information is public. And that's how they came up with the Linux operating system. Okay. Crowdsourcing is a little more controlled. It says, I'm going to run competitions. This is what this company Top Coder does for us. I'm going to run a competition. I'm going to take your specs that are very detailed, and I'm going to open this up to the whole world. Now, they know who their coders are, but they're in China, they're in South America, they're in Australia, and they get qualified. And they run competitions for people to contribute their code. It goes through quality testing. There's peer reviews by groups about how good the code is, and I am assembling a system using this crowdsourcing where I have developers in China, Australia, South America contributing to my technology. Puts me in a position to assemble the code. So you'll see different variations of this. I'll give you another example. In Europe, there is, okay, traditional bank lending. So you want to borrow money, you go to a bank, whatever. Well, what about the person that wants a $1,000 loan or a $2,000 loan, right? There are websites that do peer-to-peer lending. So they say, oh, Beth, do you want to actually lend people money? What's your risk profile? How much are you willing to tolerate lending? At what risk? And what kind of return are you looking for? And they pair up a person that's looking to borrow money and what they're willing to pay and how well they qualify. And I got to tell you, the returns on this have been fantastic. And people have gotten their money back. And so what's happening is it's really opening up a whole new world about how we think and how we do things. now, it's going to cannibalize a lot of the big businesses, I think. And so we just have to be smart. But if you don't embrace it, it's going to happen without you, and it'll leave you in the dust. So I think it's something you have to start thinking about. And again, because when kids come out of school in the next few years, I think just the way they work is going to be so different. So if we don't embrace it, are we going to start discouraging kids from working in our organizations? So I think that was a long-winded answer, but you have to embrace it. And there are people that have embraced it, and we're embracing it too. We're trying to figure out how, though. Because you don't want to have a free-for-all. So it has to be very targeted and controlled. Like at BGE, I don't want to just open up, a website where you can just complain about me. That's not constructive. I want to do something where we can have a dialogue and say, I can help you save on your energy. Let me tell you how. Anything else? So what do I think about customizing an off-the-shelf product? It's very highly discouraged. This is where the question came in where I said, why do you think you're different if there's a big user community out there that does all these things and you can't get on the bandwagon? The cost of customization is very great, and it's not even just on when you implement a system, it's when you try to go and upgrade to the next level of the system. So what we do to manage customization is we even have steering committees and executive boards that if you want to customize anything, you have to come forward and justify it. And half the time, people won't come forward because they don't want to go in front of the committee, and they'll learn to adopt. But it's very costly to take a package. And the world is going, who is that guy that wrote, is IT, was it IT obsolete or IT over, I forgot, Nick something or other, the guy from the Harvard Business Review? Right, Nick, I had an argument with him. Right, but anyway, I did. And he's an economist. And so what he was saying is, the IT world's actually changing. It's not that IT is obsolete. I think that IT roles are changing in certain companies. Unless you're at a vendor, we are a big integrator of packages. And so it's not like we're developing systems from scratch. We're integrating, and that's where you have to understand the business. So highly discouraged, and you really have to justify if you're changing a package. But a lot of the packages are getting smarter too, and they have ways for you to go outside the package for your customization so that you're not actually touching the integrity of the package, and it makes it easier for upgrades. So there's much more flexibility available. An in-house homegrown solution, we always look first to buy first, and if we really can't find something, then we'll build. Again, it has to do with that time to market, because anything you buy, as long as you don't have to change it and it'll meet your business needs, is going to get up and running much faster. And then it has to do with the longevity over the time, of the packages there. If it's something that's going to be around long term, then you would probably want a support organization like a vendor that has a lot of people that support that package rather than, having to have in-house support. So I would say that our in-house development is kept to anything that's just very, it's something you can't buy a package for that'll meet your needs. So things that are typically packaged are, there's no reason to write a financial system, there's no reason to write a human resource system. Even in BGE and in generation where we're doing work systems and inventory management systems, those are packages. There's a lot more software out there. So the things that we'll usually do in-house are things that you want to start small and iterate because you're not necessarily sure where the business is going. So that's how we balance it. How do I see IT security evolving over the next 5 years? First of all, our IT security is not within IT. It's actually with our physical security, because things are actually blurring between what's physical and what's IT. I can't stress enough how important IT security is. I think the challenge for us in IT security is there's not a lot of good integrated software out there. And so a lot of companies like EMC and Cisco and Microsoft are really focusing on their suite of tools. Because right now you have a lot of pieces, parts, and everything's very targeted to a very specific they have a very specific focus, but yet you can't get full visibility. Encrypting email is very, very, very big. How do you tag your email is very big. Email is the biggest challenge. Unstructured data is the biggest challenge. And also storage is becoming more of a challenge because it's just the amount of storage that's grown rapidly. How do you manage that and how do you keep it secure? So people are focusing on things like tiered storage and how you manage those tiers. So I'll tell you, if you kids coming out of college want a hot field, go into IT security because you can't find people. And it's something that's going to continue to evolve and it's going to be very important. Now you have to also remember why IT security is so important is there are so many internet protocol addressable devices out in this world now that espionage becomes very possible. And so how do you manage, not things even within my four walls, how do you manage these internet protocol addressable devices so that somebody, doesn't want to take down your business? So very, very, very important. I hope that answered your question because there's so many angles to come at it from. Yeah, so what's our approach to project management? A lot of people sitting at these two tables we have a program management office, although we have very many. Our vision for project management and program management is to actually try to centralize as much as we can because it's a skill. It's so funny because project managers, it's one of those skills when times get tough, everybody gets rid of them. They're the most important piece of, it's the most important about keeping a project on track and actually managing your workflow. So we have tried to, at least in the IT group, we have program management offices. We consolidate a lot of our reporting. We are starting to use a lot more tools so that we have visibility into our project management data. So we're a very big user of the Mercury suite of tools. Mercury was purchased by Hewlett-Packard, so Hewlett-Packard now has a whole suite of tools. This is a very big focus for us on everything through project management, through change management, through implementation in the data center to managing the data center. And so there is a lot of stress because I'll tell you where projects, and we're talking about, remember, I'm running big, big, big projects. They go wrong, they cost me a lot of money. So there's a very big focus. They're also focused on our strategy. We ask them to wear very many hats, but we do have program management offices with the project managers reporting in. We try to centralize where we can, but we have some big projects that you just need to take people out and put them out on the projects. But when they're done, we really want to get the people back into a PMO. IT governance, yeah. So how long did it take us to get IT governance under control and did people still go out and do their own thing? I'm trying to remember back. When I first came in, people told me we couldn't put in a standard desktop because nobody would go for it. And it was really about addressing people's concerns because I work in Constellation has a lot of engineers, and engineers are actually the most dangerous users because they know enough to be dangerous. So I would say it probably took 2 years to get it under control. Part of the problem was my procurement wasn't centralized. And since the procurement wasn't centralized, that was one of the things I did. I had no visibility into what was being purchased. I'll tell you why it also took 2 years is because I locked down their desktops and took away their administrator rights. There was no way for them to load software. So we took a very hard line. And with going to Microsoft Vista, we're even taking a harder line. And so I'd say until we rolled out the desktops, probably 2 years, until we centralized the procurement, that's what made the difference. And nobody questions it anymore. Now I have to have special exceptions for things like removable disk devices and things like that. So unfortunately, we had to go to an extreme case. And I mean, even down to the point where I wasn't letting people write to CD writers. Again, we ease that up with certain exceptions, but we had to take the hard line. The other way, if you don't take a hard line, is there's a lot of software out there that will help you monitor what's being put on machines, and you can go after the individuals. But we took the other approach. Gloria? How do we manage all of our generational differences, differences in gender? And, you know, I have to honestly say, I'm not exactly sure how the magic happens, but I think me being female probably helps that women see that they can have a career in technology. I think that the way my style is I'm very collaborative, so it's not a dictatorial kind of environment and everybody has a say. I think the fact that I'm intolerant of bad behavior would also probably have that. And it's so funny, I think, because I also grew up, I'm one of 3 girls in my family, so I never grew up with a brother, and I was never told there was anything that I couldn't do. And I would never say that to anybody, so I wish I could tell you that there was magic in this. There isn't. Because I'm on CWIT, we're really good about trying to bring in interns that are females. I think women have to just tell guys to knock it off if they're really doing bad stuff, or if, because there's a generational gap, and you can't be afraid and timid about telling people to knock it off. But we're not tolerant of that behavior, and so I walk around a lot. I want to hear what people are saying, and like I said, I don't think there's any magic in this. I think we just have to work through it. Anything else? Well, I'll be here afterwards, so if anybody wants to ask any questions. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.